You're starting.
Okay. We're going to start the Board of Finance meeting now. And do we have Zoom working?
Yes.
All right. So call to order at 10:02. So the first item is public comment. Right? I know we've got a lot to relate to. Anything on Zoom?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, the first order of business is acceptance of the minutes from April 3rd. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, that carries. By the way, I'll point out we have all the regular members are here, so the alternates stay for the vote tonight. Okay, communication and correspondence. Let's see, the fire study. We'll act when we get to additions next meeting. In addition.
Is that battery operated?
Yeah, it must be shorting now. So we'll need an addition in a moment to see if somebody can attend the fire study on May 1st. We had, I believe, 4 resident emails to the budget comment. 2 that I would characterize as please support the schools. And 2 that I would characterize as concerned about increasing taxes. Did anybody read those differently, or did any come in?
There's someone saying they can't hear.
Is somebody on the computer?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, it just goes in now. So we'll do an addition for that. I had some email correspondence with the assessor, and Eden, and also the town attorney regarding the mill rate that I mentioned during the presentation. We will be unable to have a higher mill rate for motor vehicles. So in our deliberations, that's $150,000 we're going to have to find in our solution. And we were also copied, I don't know if Sandy's here, but we were copied on an FOI request. I'm not really sure the status of that, but I think our mail group was copied on that. Okay, any other communication or correspondence anyone has that you want to report? So additions, is there an addition to,
I can make a motion to add an addition to discuss the representation at the fire study.
okay? Is there a second? Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, let me add, I'll make it, whatever letter comes before A, we'll call it 5 alpha or something. We'll take care of that first.
Okay.
All right, fire study. Is there, May 1st is a Wednesday. I believe the fire study meeting, I think I have it here, I think their meetings are at 6 p.m., I'm not positive.
Yes, we normally
6
meet
p.m.
at 6.
6 p.m. here. Is there anybody, first of all, who wants to nominate himself for that? I believe that there's going to be a representative from one of the fire apparatus vendors presenting different apparatus options.
So I've done it in the past, and I do think it's valuable to have someone from Board of Finance there. Unfortunately, my work schedule has changed, so I'm no longer able to do that. But I do think it's very valuable if someone could represent the Board of Finance and provide input.
Do we have to decide that at this meeting? Is it like?
Well, it's only in a week. I mean,
I guess we do.
I'm happy to do it then if nobody else wants.
I could probably maybe tag team it at least with
Okay,
you, you know.
all right, so it can be in time.
Yeah, we'll got shut out.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention. Okay, anybody else wants to come along? Okay, we also had, 5A is appointing auditor for FY '24. So I included, our auditor is Mahoney Sable. I just included for everybody's, reference the time when we awarded them the contract. It was for FY '23 through '27, and the fee schedule there, but we are required to actually appoint them each year. So in that fee schedule, so what we're doing is appointing them to do our books this year, FY '24. That's year 2 on the fee schedule, so that the fees have gone from 47.8 to 49.7. So is there a motion to appoint Mahoney Sable as the auditor?
So just a quick question. This is, we used to go out to get bids. This is part of the contract that's already
Yes.
there? Okay, all right, so it's just a continuation of the,
Yes, it's just approving this year of the bid that we already got approved. We will go out to bid again so that for FY '28, we will have whoever's the auditor then will gone through a bid process.
then I can make a motion to appoint Mahoney Sable as town auditor.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstention? Okay, that carries. Okay, we're up to discussing the input, revenue projections, everything we heard, and getting ready for the town meeting presentation. So, we will be making, motions for a selectmen, board of ed, debt service, and capital amounts. For town meeting action, the town meeting being on May 7th. So we can do, separate motions for each item, which we may choose to do, but I wouldn't mind having some discussion about what we heard and what people's thoughts are.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, I think what I heard, I think a lot of people are behind making sure the Board of Ed gets funded. I think overwhelmingly, from all the people that spoke, I don't think really anybody wants to see downsizing in teachers, more kids added to classrooms, and I personally don't think it does the town any justice. I mean, I think I'd like to revisit kind of where we're sitting there.
I would just echo those sentiments. One of the things that I've heard loud and clear is that we have approximately 1,000 voters who have kids in the public schools, and then several more that have kids up and coming. And we're at risk of our futures if we're not funding this. So I think that we as elected or appointed officials, it's our goal to propose what's in the town's best interest and what we think the town will overwhelmingly approve. And I think that higher education budgets are in that realm of what we should be representing ourselves for. And also, I've heard a lot of points about our general government and concerns with youth services and just making sure we have the general operations of public safety and everything else. So I think that it's across the board. The majority of the town is in favor of supporting what we need to keep the town moving at the same clip that we've already been used to. And it's going to hurt this one year, but that's because the past several years we've had lower than inflationary budget increases. I mean, the 2022 cost of living CPI adjusted inflation was 8%. I think we had a 1% budget increase that year. So if we had increased our budgets year over year to keep up with the cost of inflation, we'd be at that point right now. So I do want to just level set that and make sure that we're aware that just because we're proposing to increase the budget so much at this point, we can't look at it as an increase this year and large expenditures. It was, we saved those years that we didn't increase budget, 22, 21, and in COVID years as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I think I always try to look back over a period of time and say, what's the average, right? I mean, you can't think this year is an outlier. We're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with the loss of the funds, the federal funds that we've used to kind of supplement things over the last few years. But I guess one of the things we're supposed to do here is comment on what we saw from the public. And I think it was a fairly passionate group tonight that was concerned about maintaining the school system the way it is, and the town services. But one thing jumped out at me, and I don't mean to put people on the spot, but Jim had made a comment that people should have done their homework before they moved to this town to find out about the education. Well, that is why they moved to this town, regardless of what the per pupil cost was, and what the so that segues into kind of my observation that what's driving this is our education system. That's one of the reasons our property values went up so much. That's one of the reasons 5 years ago we had the highest increase in property values in the state of Connecticut for a town our size. I think it was number one in the whole state, actually. So those are the types of things that we invest in as a town, and sometimes we have to stand up and say, okay, we got to fund these. That being said, it's an extremely difficult year. I mean, we were starting out with a 9% increase year over year, zero increase. So, but to Jeff's point, you have to average it. You can't look at it just in a microcosm of 1 year, because that's when people get hurt. And if you just isolate that particular year and say, okay, we're going to hold the line here, that's not the way I've ever looked at it running a business or any sort of financial observations. So yeah, I'm thinking that the towns would support a larger increase than what we proposed originally. But, you know, it's going to come down to us to make that decision.
Do you want to go last?
Yeah, so we talked about lower budgets. Sometimes Jeff kind of responded somewhat to what you're saying. What we've actually done is we look at the last 25 years, it has averaged 2%. So that has proven what people can afford and what they're willing to vote for and go with. One of the concerns I have, I kind of spoke a little bit about it last meeting, is I do worry about the folks that can't afford a tax increase, right? I think people who generally say, yes, I'd like to support the schools, yes, I'd like to do this, are folks that can personally afford it. We need to be mindful of some of our more vulnerable citizens who can't afford that. And I'm concerned that a 6.5% increase last year and at least a 14+ increase this year puts it at over 20% tax increase over a 2-year span. It's just things that I think a lot of people are going to struggle to be able to afford, and we're going to put them in a financial burden that they just can't handle. And we need to be mindful of them in addition to being mindful of what the school's needs and wants are as well.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the, I think we always like to comment on the crowd too, and I just didn't hear people coming out for the schools. It was also to Oliver's point on tax increases as well, people with fixed incomes. Thankful for all the people that came out too. It's better to get feedback than on the last couple of years when we had 2 to 5 people in the crowd and we really had nothing to work with. So thanks for everyone coming out and voicing their opinions either way. I'm going to be in favor of going with what we gave guidance last month. A lot of people did legwork going in here, and I know sometimes it's probably not always best to meet in the middle. So that's kind of what the board's done the past couple months. Juggle everything. You know, a lot of people just get snippets tonight and want to make a snap judgment. We've been looking at these numbers since January, as you guys saw in the presentations. We've all been kind of consistent all the way through there. And I just don't want to make a emotional decision tonight.
Maybe it's a Todd thing, but I echo Todd's words. But I understand the needs of both boards. And I truly wish that, you know, our small town could fund everything that we discussed during the past few hours. But being that it is a small town, and as an elected board, we need to look across our town, across everyone that's impacted. And it's impossible to make everyone happy. So I'm in favor of, you know, what we had agreed to last month as well.
So I have the luxury of not having to vote tonight.
Yeah.
So I mean, I understand both sides of the argument. I've got, you know, 2 stepchildren in school right now. One of the reasons we moved here was because of the schools. Also, the taxes weren't outrageous. I looked at places like Glastonbury, and right now, we're gonna be blowing Glastonbury out of the water when it comes to taxes. There's a lot of passion in the room tonight, and you hear the side that you want to hear, but I think it was on both sides. I can afford the tax increase. I don't want to do it, right? I don't know if it makes sense, but I agree with the few guys over here that you have to look at the whole picture, the rest of the town. If there's only 1,000 people who are paying taxes who have children in the school system, that means that there's a few thousand others that don't. 1/3 of the population's on a fixed income. You really have to look at how does that impact them. So am I 100% on the lower end? No, I could probably have a little wiggle room in there to go up, but I don't know if you can go all the way up to what they're asking for. I mean, we heard that, you know, the number on the board was 5, but there was 2 retirements and now it's 3. You know, we hear that we're getting close to capacity, but what was capacity? Is it capacity you can have 30 kids per teacher and then that's the limit, and we're at 27? Where are we today? Are we at 24? And how big of an impact is it? Is it a true impact, or is it those really good sound bites that make us maybe make snap decisions? So I think we need to really look at it again. You guys, like you said, you've been looking over it for months. You have to dig into it again, take a breath, maybe walk away from it for a second and come back, and then make sure that the decision we're making is the right one for our students, for our taxpayers, you know, and for the town and as a whole.
I just have one more item. So looking back, you had mentioned looking back, and that sparked this. One big topic that has come up time and time again is external revenues, the warehouse, stuff like that. That warehouse, whether you want to argue $1 million in revenue, $2 million in revenue to offset taxes, I would like to just bring this up to the board, that there was a vote to add an additional planning and zoning member. And that was largely seen as a referendum on trying to push the warehouse through. People resoundingly came out and were against it because they were against the warehouse. And I correlate that to being against driving revenues through other means and being willing to pay that additional tax burden. So even though there are some outspoken people who are very against raising taxes, there are a lot more people out there that are outspoken about understanding that we need new revenues, and they're willing to foot the bill. I know a lot of people within the Sanford Ridge communities, the Spoonville neighborhood communities, who are on those fixed incomes that we talk about, that 1/3 of that population, who are willing to sacrifice for the good of the larger population. So I do want to throw that out there, that our town has largely come out and said, we understand we need new revenue, but we want to do it smart. And if that means we have to pay out for it, we're willing to do it. Not everyone, and it's always not going to be everyone, but there is a large portion of people on those fixed incomes that have said that as well.
I just wanted to say one thing. Every year I bring this up because I think it's important, but East Granby actually does have tax elderly and totally disabled homeowners tax relief. There's an income threshold, of course, but I mean, it's not sub-poverty. It's $55,000 a year for a married couple. So if they're inordinately impacted, they have relief. So I'd be in favor of raising that, by the way. I don't know what would be involved with that, but I think that is a provision put in place for people that truly are in need.
Do you know what it is for an individual?
Single,
Yeah.
40-something.
46,300. This is from the website. It's a little out of date, but I don't know what it is.
I'm just glad you had it handy, so.
Yeah, no. I try to bring it up every year because I think it gets lost in the conversation.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I heard you all heard a lot of passion for trying to support schools where they came in at 6.38, and also a lot of passion for not, or for holding the line as much as could be done on taxes. I would love to come to a place where we can get to 6.38 and keep our taxes about where we said they would be, and keep our fund balances manageable. So I'm not convinced we can't do that. It might take a little work. You may see me looking at a screen, I'm trying different things, but if there's a way we could do that, I think that would be a win.
So just along those lines, if we are going to pivot in that direction, I think we need to be on the same page as what we consider a reasonable amount to have. You know, there was a comment brought up today that we have historically been at 10%, and I can't remember a time where it's not been 10%.
It hasn't. You're right.
So
Just real quick though,
Sure.
one of the reasons it was so high for a while, because we were building it up so that because we knew there was a bonding contract. So that was by intent. It wasn't by planning or any sort of long-term design, but we knew we were going to need the money. My concern, and to the point of reducing that, is we may be looking at another bonding project, maybe not a big one, but interest is interest right now, and it's especially high. I'm not a big fan of you drawing down the cash balance substantially. I'd rather bite the bullet, pay it this year, even if it's another, couple tenths of a mil or whatever it takes. And the other, well, for a variety of reasons, one of which is you want to be able to pay that when it comes due, but also it does affect your interest rate. So that over the long term, I think is not the best planning. But it's a conversation I'd be willing to talk about.
Sure. No, I agree with you a lot on that, Mike, and one of the reasons that I would advocate for keeping it at that 10%, if not, I mean, we can't go higher this year, right? But I would not want to lower that is exactly what you're talking about. We've got potentially a new school roof that's gonna need a bonding project. I don't think anyone here, regardless of what end of the spectrum we are with the taxes versus the schools, and as far as trying to find the appropriate balance, I don't think any of us wants to waste money on interest unnecessarily. So long-term thinking, I personally would advocate for not trying to deviate too much from where we are, especially when we look at our outlying years. Like next year, I think we're down to about 9%. We've made some tweaks, so maybe it's a little bit better. The following year, I think we're down to 7.5%. So we're already trending in, unfortunately, the wrong direction as it is. So to kind of advance that, I would be against something like that personally.
Anybody else have anything? All right. The only other lever that we may have is, and actually I'm not a fan of this, but I'll say it in case somebody is pulling back even more on the capital fund. I mean, we previously noted as a board that we weren't funding it enough, right? We made steps to go from 6 to 8. We decided to keep it level this year. But, that's the level we have. I'm personally not in favor of it.
Yeah, what's coming up in the 5-year plan? that would affect if you did do something like that.
I know we're at capacity every year.
Yeah,
up
there's
until-
more requests than there's money.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that's capital no matter where you're at. It's life.
Yeah, so we did have to pull some things out in order to get down to where we are. We needed to push some things off to subsequent years. So, that personally is not a lever I would want to pull on either. I mean, I think it's ultimately comes down to the two biggest drivers, what we're comfortable with for budget increases versus taxes. I think it's important to discuss those other two items, but I personally would not want to make any changes to what we're doing with either of those.
Okay. Do you want to start with a motion of any kind?
I'll make a motion. You want to do the separate? I think it's probably cleaner.
Probably
Yeah.
easier.
I'll make a motion to set, I'll start at what I came up with for the 6.38, which is 20 million. Kelly's not here to tell me.
No, this is going to be me, so you have to be patient with me, Mike.
Yeah, okay. 20 million, this is to set the budget for the Board of Education for the fiscal year 24-25 at $20,363,759, which reflects 6.38%.
6.3%.
Yep.
So,
Care to second it?
I'll second.
so that was Mike, and I'm sorry.
I'll second.
That's great. All right, anybody want to throw a discussion?
So any discussion on that?
I mean, my opinion hasn't changed. I feel that's too high. I don't really think there's much more I can say that's going to
You want to go vote?
influence.
I mean,
You want me to put some color on that, or you want to give other people a chance to talk first?
It's your
Color
motion.
away,
Yeah, I was going to say your motion. Start us off, Mike.
I think a couple things that come to mind listening to the potential other reasons. Historically, we've come in at a higher fund balance than we predict because we tend to approach it very conservatively. I'm not against that. I think that's a great idea. But I think especially in a year where it's this tight, you need to keep in mind that every year that I've watched, we've come in higher as the year went on. I can only hold out hope that we would this year also. And I also, somebody said this to me the other day, hope is not a plan. No, it's not a plan. But it's also, it's based on 15 years of sitting here doing budgets with the Board of Finance. But basically, I think we don't have to necessarily expend all the capital. We can put it in the plan. We don't have to spend it if things get extraordinarily tight as the year goes on. I think it's good to have it there because you don't have to go back to the town to try to get it if you need it. But I do think that that is one of the potential pullbacks if things got really, really hairy. The other one is to consider using a little more capital this year. And with the understanding that, it's a one-time deal, that you reduce it. And you can do that from the capital fund, you can do that from the cash balance, you can do it from wherever you want. But, I mean, I'd be okay with that this year to get us over this hump and to mitigate the impact on the taxpayers as best we can. But anyway.
So if I can just add some context, so
Absolutely.
one of the things, you're absolutely correct. We have historically been very conservative of the model.
Yep.
Jeff and I have recently looked at the model and, there've been a couple of things where we've updated where we felt comfortable.
Yep.
And I think Jeff mentioned it in a public meeting where, we made an update to this year and brought it back down to a more conservative number in the future because we anticipate interest rates will go down at some point. We can always reevaluate next year if that's not the case, right? But I think we need to plan on conservative numbers in the meantime. But they're a little bit better than they were. So we're already working from that standpoint.
Yep.
And then the other thing is I would agree with capital. I think we really need to be smart this year and wait until the end of the year to approve any capital requests unless it's an absolute emergency because of some of the circumstances you're talking about.
And I think that gives us enough flex to work with the number I proposed. We may disagree, but yeah.
So I agree with Oliver in terms of the holding off on any capital until the end of the year because that gives us a lever to, if something happens where things do cost more or revenue does tank, that's, 700 grand that we don't have to ask the town to reappropriate some money. We can just transfer it between accounts. So, and I think that's a practice that the board used to follow, so I don't have a problem with that.
It's usually the way it shakes out, too, just for a variety of reasons.
So,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I know the Board of Ed has done a terrific job with that year over year, and a lot of times they've come in and said, we've got some grant funds that we can use to cover some of these things, and we can either use less or reallocate it for something else if it's a need.
so I've been updating the model here, with this proposal. So let me just, so everybody knows what I did. I increased the revenue for interest on the general fund by $48,000, and that shows the actual on the latest treasurer's report. So it probably will up a little bit more before the end of the year. So the new total is 425. I also increased the subsequent year. We had been projecting 51,000, which was a reasonable number as recently as 21, 22. But believing that interest rates will stay up, I changed that to 200,000. And then went back to 51,000 the subsequent year. Also modified the ECS grant money. We have already received 32,000, and we had only projected 100. And I changed next year's to be 112,000, which is 90% of our lowest year in the last 5, which was 124. Our average was closer to 190, but trying to be conservative. Doing all that, keeping both tax rates at 30.5. I'm finding a 10.6 balance this year and a 7.2 next year. And then it's bad, it's 5 and change, then it's up 7, then it's about 10. I get sketchy the part, I believe the 5 more than the 10 in the 5th year, but just so you see what those numbers are. And there's a way, the 10.6 is formula driven, I can probably pull the 30,000 out. I'm gonna split the spreadsheet if I try now. Other comments?
Did I cut you off?
No, I was just gonna, the 7 was for the cash balance next year, right?
Yeah,
Based on the 5
7.2.
after that.
Correct. Yep.
And that's when we would be going for the bond, hypothetically, if everything shakes out in the timeline we think it is.
Right.
Can we ask?
We'd be floating the lowest cash balance we've had.
That would be the next fiscal year, though. So we would have an opportunity to adjust that next budget cycle. So if we can, this is based on their best forecast.
Right, modeling, yeah.
So we're not voting on that, that's just the model.
No, but we want to be mindful of
Absolutely,
what we do this year and how it
I just want to make sure he
affects
understands that's not
Yep.
fixed.
Yep.
right? Because that's my concern too, Todd, frankly, that we don't have, and we do have the opportunity to address that.
Because I think we have the 2 large variables this year, right? We have the revaluation, and then we have, the large budget needs. If we didn't have those, I think we'd be looking at, how do we make sure
We'd be
we've got
home
that
by
10%. How do we make sure we've got that 10% threshold, right? And that may have been an increase just on its own.
Yes.
I think we're just pushing that up
Yeah.
a year because we have more important priorities this year, and other people correct me if they disagree.
Yeah, sorry, I made a correction. Actually, I may have a correction, bear with me. it's a little lower. It's not 7.2, it's 6.9, it's not 5.3, it's 4.9. So that's tough.
So I think that adds to the concern of a large number this year. If we think we're gonna have to go to the general public next year and say we're gonna need increases just to get our balances back. We had the 6.5 last year, which is the largest tax increase we've had in a quarter of a century. We now add 14 plus this year. We're looking at over 20 in 2 years. Plus, I'm not even sure what that's gonna be. Like, I think it's a lot to ask for people in 3 years.
But it's not a 14% increase. It's 14% mill rate. That's just because of the mix of business.
It's a 14% tax increase on average to the person, to the tax holder. Or, sorry, real estate homeowner.
Yeah.
It's getting late, I apologize. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To your 25-year point, it's been 25 years since we saw inflation anywhere near what it was last year and this year, so that kind of comes into play too. I think people have kind of built that in. But anyway, I mean, I'm very mindful of the fact that the folks put so much effort into coming. I mean, we started at 10. I think the Board of Selectmen started at 6 or 7, right? I mean, and they basically almost cut those in half. So I'm not saying that changes reality, but it does change the fact that we're looking at professionals to manage probably the number one drivers in our town in terms of a million different things, from attractiveness to parents to attractiveness to seniors. And if we can work within that, I think we have another year to work out in hopefully a much more stable environment.
We're good. Yeah.
I mean, the driver of that drop in that third year is is bringing the capital back to 750, then 800. That's the driver right there. I mean, we should be making decisions on that this far out, but. And just one other data point, if the revenue were to tick up to 30.6 instead of 30.5, it's 10.9, 7.4, 5.7.
So I think making decisions, looking at data that far out to make decisions is important.
Yeah.
I mean, we discussed that we didn't do that, and we've
Right.
kept everything really low for 20 years, and then now we hit this
Yeah.
climb, and then we're dropping off. It's because we haven't, I haven't been here, so I'm getting the feeling that we have not looked that far out and helped to inform our decisions in the present time. So doing that, I think, is important.
Okay. Any other comments? So we have a motion out there for, what was it?
$20,363,755.
$55?
55.
Okay, I had that wrong, thank you.
It's okay. It's all I take.
That's $4.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, it's 3-3, the motion does not carry. We want to lock in a couple of easy things like debt service and capital. Or do we have a motion on board of it?
We need to get this.
I think the town general budget, if you're on board with the town general budget, I think that you guys were on board with what was already proposed, so you could just knock that one out now.
We discussed that.
You had said you were good with what had been proposed last,
Upper guy, yeah.
so, and I think you guys are,
Everything on guidance, yeah.
Is there a motion on the town budget? Does anybody wants to make?
Or Jeff gives us the solution and then no one says.
He's an alternate.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
You're
make
the
a motion to, I'm trying to get the wording right. Appropriate $5,638,000. That's the numbers from Let's Talk Turkey, so I'm hoping it's accurate, for general government.
Okay. There's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, discussion on that?
I actually, I want to comment that I think it's too low, but I think we're splitting hairs here, and I think there's some needs we're going to have to look at on the town side as the year comes up, especially on the capital side. I mean, the batteries got me concerned, and the police cruiser. That's a small one, but when you start to hear stuff like that, I think there's things we need to look at. And I'll leave it at that.
And I want to go to the townspeople with this too, because no matter what their personal opinions here, if people thought that there's a lot of people in the room, it was still less than 1% of the town population that came out tonight. And they have the most data on everything we've proposed here from what we've done in Let's Talk Turkey. And I think we should just move forward with these numbers, and it'll be up to the townspeople when hopefully more than 1% of people come out and vote, and more people come out than past referendums, but it really should come down to them, not us 6 and not 50 people in the room tonight. We got to give a chance to all 5,200 people, 5,500, whatever it's up to now. And I just think it's fair to move forward these numbers that we've given data on so far.
Regardless of what we come up with, Todd, the town will have to write this. I mean, we could come up with 30%.
Maybe not everyone's, all the data some people get is, maybe not everyone can make the meeting tonight. And if it's a no vote, then so be it for the.
But if you want to use the metric of passion, more people came out speaking in favor of spending more money on education. If you want to just count heads.
I don't think it's by passion, but maybe 50 people couldn't make it tonight because they were working.
Oh, I agree.
They would have voted,
Right.
Well, can I make just a quick point too? So the original guidance that was set was made by 6 people in a room, right? So I mean, when we were in was it March when we talked about the 5.78 and the whatever, I forget the percentage off the top of my head, but 6 people in a room voted on that. So it's the same 6 people that are voting one way or the other too. And like to Mike's point, right, the town is still going to have to come out and vote. And if they don't like it, then they say no. If they do, then they say yes. So I mean, I guess
we've worked on this for 6 months though too. It's not just one night that some people might have.
I think what
that's what
Todd's-
As did the other boards.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're presenting what they think they need.
and I felt like I kind of gave in the first time, right?
I think everyone did.
People wanted, I think people wanted something a lot lower. I kind of wanted to come in higher. And I've seen lots of risk on the side of the school board's budget every time they've talked. And then now we talk about more risk. All we've done is just pad risk. I mean, at a certain point, we're going to pay for it. Like, that's just the nature of it. It's going to bite you at one point. And I'm in it for a
Yeah,
that's
I think we were on the board of select.
Yeah, can we
You want to?
vote on this one motion? I mean,
Can I just ask a quick question out of curiosity? Can we propose 2 or 3 different numbers and let the town decide what number?
I've asked that before.
That would be logical, wouldn't it?
options.
The good news is
It doesn't
we do
work in
have
government.
the question of, do you feel this budget was too high or too low for both of them, which I think
And everybody thinks it's too
Still.
high, so.
is going to help give us a good barometer on where we should go, right? Because we've never had a year quite like this.
Right,
Yeah,
well,
what's
that's something that we all doesn't fail.
What's kind of been the responses in the past about those questions?
They fluctuate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do, and it depends on who's the most vocal.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, I mean, I always thought it was an unfair question. Do you think we spend too much money on education? Well, yeah, we spend too much money on everything. Gas is too expensive. Do we spend too much money on the board of selectmen budget? Yeah, but so it's kind of like, but there have been years that they've split, but not by much. It's usually close to 50-50.
So we did have that one outlier year where people voted for the budget, and then the question was, do you feel it's too high or too low? And people said it was too high.
That
So
wasn't, I've seen that more than once.
That was strange.
All right, so we have a motion. Do we get a second?
Mike seconded that.
All right, is there any other discussion? So, all in favor of general government 5,638, say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so that carries 5-1.
Well, if nobody's going to, I'll make another motion. I mean, I don't want to hog the motions here, but I'll make another motion for Board of Ed. I'd like to make a motion to increase the budget for the fiscal year 24-25 to $20,290,520, which is kind of splitting it at 6%.
Sorry, could you repeat that number, Mike?
Sure, 20290,520.
And you said that was what percentage increase?
Approximately 6. Don't quote me on that, because Kelly told me I had to give a number, not.
No, the number's important for the meeting minutes and what goes to county, but I think for discussion, it's important to have a percentage.
It is, I'm actually doing the calculation here, it's 6%.
6% even?
6.008.
Okay.
I get a day.
All right.
Does anybody want to talk?
Well, do we have,
Just a second.
was there a second?
Does anybody
That's what
got a
I'm looking
second?
for.
Anybody want to second that?
I'll second it.
And in the model, that gives us 11.2, 8.0, 6.7, 8.9, 12.3. And that's keeping the, it's a little lower. It's 10.9, 7.4, 5.9, 7.8, 10.9. Okay, any discussions? We have a motion in a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No abstentions? Okay.
I just had a thought, you made me laugh, I'm sorry.
Want to do a debt service? Todd? We don't have much more.
Mike and I gotta go,
I'm not seconding anything.
it's not even on that.
No, go ahead. Yeah, you gotta pay the bill.
I don't have the numbers for.
I'll make a motion to set debit payments for next fiscal year at $1,204,730.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Per Let's Talk Turkey numbers.
yeah, that was correct. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that is 6-0, okay.
Did you vote against it?
No.
Oh.
Just a delayed hand raise.
All in favor, yeah?
Yeah.
So make sure I captured that right. Okay. And then capital. Oh, big.
Were we gonna touch capital?
I think we should hold that.
I think we should stay at 7. It's kind of, go ahead.
No, you go, no.
I was gonna say, I think we should stay at 7. We'd already talked about not increasing it the way we had wanted to. I think our plan outlines for full use of the 7. Everything I've heard on our capital plan is truly a need. I don't think there's anything that's a nice to have. I think they're all essentials. So I would advocate for trying to keep it at 7. And I would make a motion that we keep capital at 7.
Is there a second? While I agree with keeping it at 7, I just don't know if we're going to need a lever to get to a overhead number or not.
I agree. I think we need to deal with more of that.
It's
It's the only one we can move. We can't not pay the debt. We can't, you know what I mean? So,
And going back to capital too, we've always kind of preached, at least the last few months when we were fleshing this out, if we're putting something in and we're taking something out from somewhere. So that's why, well, so for same kind of concept in Board of Ed, are we willing to take out of capital to fund that? You know,
I'm not, so this is the lever that we have. If we can come to agreement on Board of Ed, okay, just for sake of argument here. If we can come to agreement on that, we approve capital. So if we run into a trigger or a wall somewhere, or we get less from the state or something unforeseen, we have that money in there that we can hold back. We can't move it back into the fund until the end of the year, which it reverts back to the general fund. So it is a weight, okay? I'm not saying that, but I'd be okay with that, but I still need to get to some point in my head where I think the Board of Ed is funded at a level that I think is appropriate in order to make that bargain, for lack of a better word. Because I think it's a legitimate trade-off. If we legitimately run into fiscal issues and we can't fund what we proposed and we're short, we can pull back on the capital. So if we get to a number on Board of Ed, I'm in favor of keeping that number there and we see how it shakes out through the year. And that's our trade, that's our lever. I'm not saying there's any shortage of capital needs.
Yep.
I'm fairly confident the way the economy's going, the way the state, I wouldn't be surprised if we got more money from the state this year than we expect, just because there's a lot of money in the state right now, at the state level, and there's a lot of state reps that are running for re-election this fall. So they're always looking for ways to increase. That's what I've seen historically, okay? I'm not making any predictions, I'm just saying. I have some hope that it will be better than what we anticipate. That being said, we have that, I think keeping that money in capital is a legitimate budgeting tool, you know?
So, yeah, I think keeping it as is, as we've planned for, you know, letting, you know, both Board of Ed and Board of Selectmen feel comfortable with what their needs are being addressed and covered on the capital side at least, is some reassurance. And to your point, we get to the end of the year, it is something that we could decide not to approve if we have to weigh against something else. So I guess it sounds like you're saying 700 is a comfortable number for you.
Once we get through Board of Ed.
You're gonna hold up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any other way to do it that's legit. I mean, otherwise you're just triggering, if we can't agree on board, we don't know what we're spending on Board of Ed yet. So we don't have a number there,
Okay.
right? So without having that number, how do you know that, how are you setting aside a certain amount and hoping you don't have to use it for something else if you don't have?
Yeah. So my thinking is, I'd rather do Board of Ed first, because what if we need 50,000 out of capital? To me, whatever we allocate for capital, we know the needs are there. We ought to be thinking how we're going to be spending 80, 90% of it. I would think.
All right.
I think there's-
That's what
yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get at. Are we thinking about lowering capital and throwing money from capital to Board of Ed? Is that the discussion? To get to Board of Ed number, are we willing to sacrifice some capital?
That's not what you
I
said.
think what I'm saying is yes, I would be thinking that. In my mind, I would not be taking 290,000 or whatever the number was.
So at 5.75, we're talking about an additional 47,000 over the original.
For Board of Ed. I started on 6 point whatever. If you guys want to meet me halfway, if you want to go with whatever, I think now we're starting to talk about tens of thousands of dollars, and I think 6% was a fair offer. I think in the scheme of where we are, we're still not giving them what they want, anywhere near what they want. Missy originally was at 7.4. She's come down. I mean, we're acting like we're the only board here, and I don't mean to be, I see this every year, but I think we need to give some consideration to where they're at. And I think if we came in at the 6, which was my motion, I think that we have enough leverage within capital. And I'm still confident that we're not going to have to use that. I've never seen it get to that point We still have, what did you say that the cash at that rate was 10.9?
Can we pull up the capital plan? Let's just discuss what we would yank out if we needed to.
Fair enough, yeah.
Because I don't want us to be making decisions without understanding the
So
consequences.
just to be clear, Oliver, I'm not suggesting we yank anything out of there right now.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that that's a trigger. And if we were to hit that trigger, something bad happened. You know what I mean? That we didn't get the money we thought we were gonna get from the state, or the economy took a turn, or something,
Yep.
you know? Ironically, if interest rates go up, it helps us, but, you know, I mean, that's not, but anyway, what were you gonna say, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm not sure I follow you. So your proposal is some number for Board of Ed, doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
And 700 for capital as we plan, but don't spend it all and save in case we,
Well, no, we approve capital, that's my point. It's something we have say over. And what that does is at the end of the year, it rolls back into the fund. So we can use that to maintain our checking balance.
So I guess what I'm trying to
Which we do
understand is what do you want? You want more money in capital than 700? You want less
No.
money in capital than 700? Just put it in those simple terms.
6%, 700,000. That's what I would be in favor of. I'm open to other ideas.
But I guess I'm trying to understand, you want to postpone the capital conversation before, so you can have the Board of Ed one, but I don't understand what you would want from capital in the line.
plus the capital is its own fund. I mean, if we put the money there,
And we don't spend it
then we have to specifically move it back.
at the end of the year to balance if we come up short.
Yeah.
So
don't
lowering
think-
the capital number wouldn't help you in that situation. I don't think we can afford to raise the capital number. I
If
guess
you're more in favor of lowering the
Yeah,
capital,
that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I'm at more at lowering the capital, just calling it what it is. saying-
Jeff wants a clean number here.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta be transparent too, what we're.
Right, so if we lower it from 700, what would we take out? That's what I just want to understand. Because we have a plan that's at capacity.
So is our capital asks, like a water line as it is, or is it, I mean, in order of what's most important to the town currently?
We
And then you
asked,
just move the water line to the budget that you have, right? It takes itself.
so the various boards do present it in a priority order, but the challenge is like, say your bottom item is only 15,000, and then your next item is like 30,000, and then your next one's 100,000, and you need to pull out 80, you end up jumping up.
No, I
pulling out the
know, I don't know how
$100,000
water
item.
lines work. but-
I just want to know what that $100,000 item is that we're
Yeah,
talking
well,
about.
I had asked that already.
Taking.
What is on our capital list that we would put in jeopardy?
Right.
By doing
I don't know
this?
that we can look at the capital plan. I think we would need the boards to say, we need whatever it is, 50,000, 100,000, what would you take off?
Like, I think we understand
Right.
on the operating side, we've heard from the
Yeah.
boards the various degrees and what the consequences would be on those numbers. They haven't had a chance to have any input on what the consequences would be on changing capital.
So when you look at our
Right.
capital, are there safety risks? Are we putting safety of, our firefighters or our residents because we made this decision? Those are the types of things that if we're gonna have to make a tough call, we gotta make sure that the impact is equal. So are there things on that list right now that if we do this and don't have the money, it's dangerous to a person, right? Let's start there.
There are things
right?
like the fire apparatus that's in there.
There's always stuff in there that's critical, but there's also stuff like fascia on the buildings and stuff like that.
Right.
Take
So-
down another couple
Carbon
months.
extractor.
So let's get
Not
the critical items and say it's this much, and then this is the wiggle room we may have for discussion.
Yeah, I don't.
These things we can't push these off. They're gonna have to happen. There's safety, the building's gonna collapse, a firefighter's not gonna be able to go into a building because of it. I mean, we're at that point where it's no longer, this and that. We have to, if we're gonna make these decisions, we have to do it on some type of basis. And I think for capital, safety would be the first one, right?
Absolutely.
Ironically, I suggested capital because I thought this would be our easier capital.
Well, we're down to 2, so it's getting.
Yeah. Well,
Is there a motion on the table?
There is for 700.
Who seconded it? Did I second it?
No.
I didn't, yeah.
So you either vote on it or have it withdrawn, or,
Or has,
If you want to
rescind it
withdraw it,
and
we
then-
can do Board of Ed. I mean, that's up to you.
I just wanted to understand, like, your rationale on, like, if you were looking to increase it, you're looking to decrease it. I can withdraw it if it's gonna make this whole thing easier, but, I mean, that's kind of where my thoughts are is the 700. But I will withdraw my motion.
my thought would be a capital of around 650. I don't believe that tonight we can do justice to finding the right 100,000. I think we would want the boards to talk to their facilities people, and we would just say, here's, the number is now, in fact, we thought, in the plan, we thought it was 750, so we already have a $50,000 gap there. They would have to come back to us with the 100,000 once it was passed, if 650 passed. But, you know, I'm thinking in that neighborhood, you know, 650, 625, 675, something like that, coupled with a higher Board of Ed number.
I withdraw my motion.
I'll make a motion for Board of Ed. If no one else has anything before that. To set it at 20 million, we'll go clean $250,000, which will be a bit over 575, around 58.
250 even?
5.7.
Yeah, 250, yeah.
5.79.
243 was 5.75, so we'll be a little bit
So-
better than that.
I know you
We'll
just
just
made a
meet 'em.
motion, this is not Robert's rules, but if you were to come in more closer to 270, I think I could get there. Just because I'm looking at teachers and I'm
Yeah,
looking at the numbers. So that's a little over 5.8%. It's
Yeah,
270.
so at a starting, we added a teacher back.
That's what, yeah, that's what kind of where I'm looking. I don't think that that's gonna
Already.
quite get there. You wanna,
Oh, that's,
yeah, okay.
I'm pretty comfortable right there.
So you're comfortable at 250 or 270? I wanna make sure.
250.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so is there a second?
Which is, I mean,
Yeah, I'll second.
discussion's right in the middle.
Well, I mean, it's not really in the middle, right? Because
more towards six.
6.38. So I mean, that's not really the middle. The middle would have been closer to 6. Right.
From his
I mean,
last
we-
motion was 6.
The motion.
Well, he's talking about the middle
Five,
between,
I'm
so,
saying the middle.
I was between the two, no, I was saying between the last two motions, as we're getting closer together. It's the middle of
he's talking about the middle between what they want and what the.
Yeah, I'm going from the last, your last
Yeah,
motion.
he's splitting it like
Yeah,
it's 6,
correct,
right,
yeah.
right. Like I said, I could support 280.
Did you just say
270 or
270?
290.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm
What was your
noticing a
original
trend.
motion? It's getting late. What was your original motion?
20,250,000.
Oh, 270, okay. I guess it's getting late.
And was there a capital? that-
So you're gonna make-
No, I thought we were just gonna flesh out.
So you're
Board
at
of Ed first.
270 then? No. What? I'm losing.
He did 250 is what he said.
Okay, and then you're sticking with that. Okay. Fair enough. Somebody second.
250 is 11.
Yeah, Todd seconded it.
7,
What's that?
Todd seconded it, right? Yeah.
All right, is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
Right. Nay.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna try that then, okay?
I'm only gonna try.
Because we're getting, no, we've gone past midnight before, so. All right, I'm gonna make a motion for 20,570,000 even.
570 or
Wait,
270?
five,
270, yes, 270. 20, I can't even read my own. 20,270,000 for the fiscal year 24-25 for the Board of, 20,270,000, right? For the fiscal year 24-25 for the Board of Education budget.
For a second? Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries 5-1.
Wait a minute, did it carry?
Carried.
Just kidding.
I had to try it first.
All right, now, we want to try capital?
Sure.
700. I would like a.
So at 700 with everything else we've done, we're sitting at 11. Hold on, it just seems high.
Everything's legal now, that's right.
Okay, we're at 11, 7.6, 6.1, then 8.1, 11.3. And there's probably a way to,
Let's hope you know right at 30.5. We're gonna find out.
that's with the mill rate at 30.5 as we had advertised, and just adjusting the mill rate down to from where we go.
So I mean, here's the other piece. Should the mill rate go up for housing by 0.1 since the car mill rate will be dropping? I mean, at the end of the day. it
Is that
will be-
incorporated, Jeff?
The car mill rate dropping, I dropped it to 30.5.
Yeah, so is that the equivalent of 10 basis points on the housing mill rate?
It's actually, it's about 0.2, well, yeah, it's about 0.2 actually.
So should we be considering that, because what we advertise from an overall tax burden on the town in Let's Talk Turkey, it's not changing, it's just mix of numbers.
We could discuss it. I mean, my point of view is, we said 30.5, I think we could do 30.5. I'd rather not raise it. We don't have to set the mill rate, you know, the mill rate we're talking about is still to be anticipated. We would set it once
Let's say vote it.
once there's a vote, and we will have, at that time, we'll have another month of actuals, we'll have the April actuals, and you may see that our revenue is even a little better than we.
A little more better clarity from the state.
My concern is with the
Drop.
the reserves
Yeah.
dropping, if we could raise the mill rate to keep the taxes based on what we were originally projecting.
So,
Capital?
capital, is there a motion for capital?
I'll make a motion to put 700,000 into the capital account.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? All right, that carries unanimously.
Even Oliver voted.
He told me Michael.
Yeah, I don't think you can vote against your motion.
The motion.
All right.
But one thing, I don't think we're spending too much money on.
The last item we have on the agenda then is monthly reports, which is the treasurer's report. Is there a motion on the treasurer's report?
Motion to accept it as submitted.
Well, we historically do all three in one.
We only have one.
got-
We actually only have the
That would be
treasurer's
the easiest one to
report,
do.
to my knowledge.
Yeah, I've only seen one.
Okay. So if it's just the treasurer, Mike made the motion,
Mhm.
I will second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? That carries.
I will just say that we gotta start discussing the sewer.
Yeah.
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 All right.
Starting to stink.
Thank you, members of the public who stayed. Oh, did I say anything?
Did you set a mill rate or not?
We will set it after there's a vote. We still anticipate it to be 30.5.
Okay.
We didn't change it, but,
Good enough.
yeah,
I never heard what the anticipated was.
yeah. Is there any other public comment?
Oh.
Thank you all for hanging with us, participating.
Have a good night, guys.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Thank you, thank you, all the board members.